Hi, everyone. My name is Les Velez, and welcome to the Opus interview series. Opus, the Organization for Paranormal Understanding and Support, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization founded in 1994. Our mission, simply put, is to help people having paranormal experiences. I'm the co-founder and chairman, and for more information about Opus, go to our website at opusnetwork.org. I tell you, I am super excited today to have with me Camille James Harman. Uh, Camille is a UFO experiencer, actress, originally from Louisiana. In December of 1995, soon after moving to Los Angeles from New Orleans, she had her first UFO sighting and abduction experience in the Silver Lake neighborhood of Los Angeles. She suspects that the encounters began in childhood. She had hypnosis sessions with Barbara Lamb and Yvonne Smith, and that revealed experiences with presumed aliens, military abductions, and light beings of pure love. Hartman attended the 50th anniversary of Roswell crash in 1997 and traveled to England in July of 1998 to see the crop circles. She wrote for UFO magazine from 2000 to 2004, an exciting job that allowed her to meet many legendary UFO researchers. She went public with her abductions, presenting at the MUFON Orange County and appearing on several television shows. She married astrologer Jeff Harman, and had a son. They moved the family to Tucson, Arizona for 10 years, where her sightings and research continued. She presented at the MUFON chapters in Tucson and Phoenix. Upon the family's return to Los Angeles in 2016, Hartman resumed her acting career. Her credits include Oscar-winning film Vice, the Emmy Award-winning series Shameless, which I love, the Lifetime movie A Daughter's Deceit, several music videos, and award-winning short films. In 2022, she won 3 Best Actress awards for the short film Tiger Lily. Wow, amazing career, Camille.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
being here.
Oh, it could be more amazing, but
That's Hollywood. That's Hollywood.
it's competing with aliens and it's competing with the vax mandates really put a
Uh-huh.
damper on my career the last couple of years because I wouldn't take the shot, but that's another conversation. But
Hmm.
that's all lifting as we speak. So thank goodness, I think things will get back to normal. I have 3 projects coming up in the near future, and I have an audition to do today before I go on vacation. So that's
Oh, well, that's good luck. Break a
thank,
leg, as they say.
thank you.
Um, yeah, I don't know how the writers strike is going to affect anything that you're doing, but hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very interesting situation. I know part of what they're complaining about, as they should, is the element of artificial intelligence writing scripts, which
Right.
is very threatening to them. It's threatening to actors too. They're talking about making films with artificially created, CGI actors. So everything is everything is up for grabs. I don't know who's going to still have a job. It's kind
Yeah.
of scary. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that because I was over at Lowe's getting some supplies. Uh, they they have a totally automated system now where there's not a body there
Mm, I
for you
know.
to check out. I mean, it's horrible. I hate that. I
Yeah,
hate
I
it.
know what you mean. It's very, it's there's a depopulation agenda and they want fewer humans. Some of these people running the world want fewer humans on the planet. It's very scary.
Well, yeah, and that's a whole nother topic, which is very interesting. So open up about what, your experience and how this all came about and where you're at right now with all of this.
Well, in a nutshell, I had these experiences in 1995, did regressions in 1996, found, that this was part of my experience that was in my subconscious and came to the surface. I do suspect it happened in childhood because I look back on a few incidents that are fishy to me and a few of my fears that I had back when I was a child, which were very paranormal fears. So I think it's gone on a long time. And Interestingly, when I met my husband years later, Jeff Harman, the astrologer, and he brought his laptop to our first date and typed in my data, um, he said, when you had this abduction stuff in late 1995, look what you had in your transits. You had progressed moon in the 12th house, and you had progressed Saturn. You had Saturn in the 12th house, which indicates to an astrologer that you would have a restructuring and revealing emotionally and structurally of your subconscious, which is very interesting that by transit, that was a configuration that matched what I went through in that time period. So that was interesting data.
Hmm,
But
yes, indeed.
anyway, to set up how it all got going in 1995, I was in my late 20s. I had just moved from New Orleans to LA with my boyfriend, Eric. We were both actors. We were both kind of feeling our oats. Like, we had hit the big time in New Orleans. We had just come off a production of Richard III, in which he played Richard and I played Lady Anne. It was incredible. It was outdoors. We had a horse on stage. It was this really amazing production. And I had my master's degree from the University of New Orleans in theater and actually in drama and communications, which applies very well to UFO stuff as well. And so we decided to move to LA and hit the big time. And we got here and we had everything going for us. I mean, really, it was great. We had day jobs. We had a beautiful rental home with a view. We had friends. We had my master's degree, my SAG card. I had an agent right away. I mean, it was like all going great. Okay, just to set the stage. Um, but what had happened right before we moved was I had been in New Orleans on my lunch break at Circle Gallery. I used to sell art in the French Quarter, and I walked over to this big bookstore called Bookstar at the time, and I felt compelled to purchase this Whitley Strieber book. It was Breakthrough. It was, I think, yeah, that's the one. It was blue and silver with the alien face on the cover, and I thought, oh my God, like I had seen the movie Communion, but I
Mhm.
only watched it because I love Christopher Walken. So when I saw this book, I vaguely knew about Communion, but I hadn't read Communion, and I just said, "Wow, that guy's still writing about aliens. Like, I wonder what he thinks now, years later." Like, I just thought it was interesting, and the face compelled me, I guess. And I bought that book, and I sat there in August at the art gallery reading my book because there were no tours. It was so hot, and I read the whole thing. I just wolfed down that book, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is incredible! Like, this is the most important thing going on the planet." So
It's interesting that,
yeah,
that image that he put on his book Communion, and that book got so many people thinking about that whole situation.
yeah,
And it's just amazing how it impacted so many people.
it's true. It was such a catalyst for so many people. And so life went on. We moved to LA the following month, and everything was great. And then in December of that same year, a couple of months later, um, I had been having some like anxiety and weird physical symptoms for a couple of months since moving to LA. I had no period, had no menstrual cycle. I was on the pill at the time. And before, when I had been late on my period, I would just go to the Walgreens and get a test and take a test and say, "Oh, I'm not pregnant. It's coming."
Hmm.
But for some reason, I didn't do that this time.
Hmm.
I just waited and waited. And I had all these weird symptoms in my body, like sore breasts and things. And so that was weird. And so we were walking the dog one day in December in daytime, and our dog barked at a squirrel that had run up a palm tree. And we are looking at the palm tree, and there was a UFO in the air above the palm tree, like way, way, way high.
Hmm.
It was black, but I couldn't make out the exact shape. I want to say it was a triangle, but I couldn't really tell. It had like a shimmer, like a plasma shimmer around it. And I just remember it was fixed in the sky right next to this palm tree. We had the palm tree for scale to see, if it was moving. And we watched it for a while, and then we looked at each other, and my boyfriend Eric, he was kind of teasing me like, "Oh, you and your UFO books. Look, it's a UFO." And we looked back and it had disappeared. Like, we looked at each other for a second, and then we looked back and it was gone. I was like, "Oh my God, take the leash." And I handed off the dog, and I was like, "I'm going home. I'm going to report it." So I looked it up in the phone book, and they actually had a UFO hotline in the phone book in LA. So I
Mm,
called that, and it was MUFON. And I knew about MUFON from the Whitley Strieber book. And
right.
so I reported it, and they said, oh, by the way, we have these monthly meetings, if you want to come. And I said, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I started going to the MUFON meetings, and I saw this Kim Carlsberg lecture where
Mm,
she had her book.
Kim, right.
Yeah. And her story was incredible. And she was also in the entertainment industry as a set photographer for Baywatch. And she was living with one of I think it was a director or producer of the show Baywatch. They were living on the beach in Malibu. And she was having these crazy, scary abduction experiences that were totally, like taking over her life. And so
Oh,
she,
very much so. Yeah, she had a traumatic time with this.
yeah. And her book just really triggered me. Like
Mhm.
I was, eh, I'm sitting in the back row of this talk, like, holy cow. Like, I'm afraid I'm one of these people. Like, I just knew it. You just know things. And it was just like, oh my God. And I got up and I went to the back of the room where she had her books on the table. And I'm flipping through it, and it has a checklist in the back. And I'm like scrolling through all these things on the checklist. Like, you might have been abducted if.
Yeah.
And I have like 80, I said to myself, I think I have like 85% of the things on this list. And Barbara Lamb was there. So I went up to her shaking, and I said, I really think I need to schedule a regression with you because, oh, I forgot to mention. So in December, when we had the UFO sighting, my boyfriend and I also had this attack of sleep paralysis twice in one night
Mm,
in bed. And I heard the first time it happened, I heard a voice call my name, like a robot sounding voice in my ear that said, Camille. And I was like, what the hell? Like that had never had, I'd had sleep paralysis, but I'd never heard a voice. Okay. So it was very weird. Anyway, I did the regression with Barbara, and I got this full on abduction memory. Okay. From that night in December
mhm.
with the sleep paralysis. And your life is never the same when you have that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I went home with my little cassette tape, and I made my boyfriend listen to it, and his face, it was like, oh my God. Like, 'cause I swear I must have lost 2 pounds, like screaming and
Mm,
crying and teeth chattering and in utter terror on this recording. And um, it was a standard. Well, I say standard because to me, once you get into this world and you start going to support groups and everything, you see that it's so common what happened to me, right? But it was,
Absolutely.
it was traumatizing.
Very
So
much so.
I'm taken in this blue beam of light, right? And I was like curled, as I recall. They lifted
Fe-
me like in a fetal
Field
position
position. Yeah.
through my ceiling. Then I'm all of a sudden unfolded and laying on a table in this misty room of white light. And I'm so terrified and I can't even deal. And Barbara's talking me through it. And she's like, well, I started screaming, everybody's looking at me, everybody's looking at me. And she said, who's looking at you? Look around the room. And I looked to my left, and there's this row of beings all standing side by side with their long arms hanging down. And they had, they were white. They were misty, I should say. So I don't know if they were not fully physical or like somewhat, amorphous. I don't know. But they had
Hmm.
big black eyes. They had white robes on. They had a high collar. They had some kind of symbol that was like a triangle in a circle.
Mm,
And they're all standing together and they're telling me, relax, relax, relax. And I'm like, yeah.
yeah. Right.
Then my knees go apart with no one touching them. And there's another being between my legs that I could not see. I couldn't see that one. I was blocked from seeing that one. And then I saw the flash of this instrument, this like
Hmm.
fetus removal instrument. Let's just say what it was. And Barbara, I was panicking, and Barbara said, you can go above your body and remember this from above. And I was like, pop out body. And this, whatever it was, experience, this thing puts this thing inside me and pulls it out. And there's a little something in there that I could see barely. And it walks out of the room with it. And I'm just weeping. And I mean, I just felt so bereft. And I was saying, like, they didn't even let me see it. and I had this horrible agony. And you know, I mean, it was devastating. And so that was pretty much the end of that regression. Um,
Wow. That's a hell of a regression.
well, and
Wow.
we had actually targeted something else before that night. We had targeted a night
Mhm.
before in Virginia where I had, it's another whole long story, but I had another experience with beings coming into my room and putting a tube in my chest and trying to suck my soul out of me, and
Wow.
me calling on Jesus, and it stopped. So that's another part of the story. Anyway, that was my first regression. So I went home with all that, played it for my boyfriend, and he was like, "Oh my God, like my girlfriend is never going to be the same." And it
Mhm.
was a very difficult thing for us to manage, you know, because he
Oh,
was not into
absolutely.
this at all. And
And that's typical when a partner has an experience like that, and they're not even able to really talk to the other member, and you can't talk to business associates. You can't talk to clergy. You can't talk to anybody because you're afraid that, hey, they're going to think you're totally nuts, and
well,
it's a bad place to be.
it is, and especially when you're a by nature, I am a communicator, right? I'm an
Hmm.
actress. I'm very extroverted. So what happened is, well, I had other incidences right after that. So first of all, just to wrap up the whole possible alien pregnancy, for lack of a better description,
Hmm.
I did get my period back in January after that abduction. Okay. So then later in July of 96, my boyfriend was out of town filming back in New Orleans, and I was sleeping alone for a week. And I woke up 3 mornings in a row at 4 a.m. sharp with my digital clock saying 400. And I was like, what the hell? There's no noise. Why am I awake at the same time every day for 3 days? What's going on? And the third morning, I got in the bath to shave because I was meeting my friend at Venice Beach. And I had this fresh triangular array of needle marks on my calf, like 3 pricks that had
Hmm.
scabbed over that I didn't have the day before. And I was like, oh, I know this is some alien thing. I'd seen it in a book or some
Hmm.
show on TV. And I found a picture of it in a book. I was like, there it is. And I was so upset. And this time I went to Yvonne Smith just to go to somebody different. I was experimenting,
Hmm.
you know. Yvonne Smith was the other big specialist in this, in regression in the area. So,
Yvonne, by the way, is one of our advisory board members.
and I'm in Zero, and I'm hooked up with Yvonne again, and I'm
Yeah.
going to meetings, and I'm also going to be part of a live regression at Contact in the Desert
Oh, fantastic.
on June 5th. So I haven't had a regression since the 1990s.
Wow.
That's how intense it is. Like, it takes a long time to process.
Process.
So
Yeah,
I'm ready. Like, I'm ready. I have some targets and we have a list, and I'm going to do it in front of an audience because I don't care. I'm like, you know what? I'm an actress. I'm used to people pointing cameras at
mm,
me and standing around while I do weird things. So I think I can handle that. And I'm like,
fantastic.
why not? So because I'm totally out of the closet. I mean, I don't know if it's a good idea or not. I don't care anymore. Hollywood is so crazy. I'm like,
Well,
they can do all the
there's
crazy stuff they're doing, then I can talk about aliens.
absolutely. I mean, there's so many people within Hollywood that have had experiences, and some of them are talking about it, and others are not.
Yeah.
So it's a very common thing. There are millions and millions of people from around the world that are having experiences like what you're talking about.
Right. And I mean, if they want to claim all this diversity and I'm like, okay, I got your diversity challenge right here. What do you think? So, I mean, are you that
Yeah,
open-minded?
yeah.
Everybody can be
Hello.
themselves. Okay, I'm gonna be myself. Let's see how it goes. So,
Oh,
so
I tell you what, you're delightful. I mean, I was just like,
well, I mean, seriously, like
no,
anything goes at this point, right? So I'm
absolutely.
like, okay, bring it. I'm ready. Mm. Anyway, so back to Yvonne. So I go to Yvonne, and we target this, night of getting up, the triangle. We target the triangle, right? And then I got beings again, but this time they took me out the window, which is interesting. There's a variation. That was
Was the
interesting.
window closed?
It was closed.
It was closed, of
And
course.
and I remember the feeling was like, I mean, the only way to describe it, because I was like, how do they do that? And It was like putting your hand in a bucket of room temperature water.
Mm.
But there's a slight difference in something, but it was weird. Um, so this time I had one of those tall white beings with the white robes, big black eyes, long fingers, white, this white being. That was the doctor. And then I had these three little ones that had wrinkly brown heads. That's all I could see were the tops of their heads. And they were around me on the other 3 points of my body. And I was screaming at them because I said, "You make me scared of little kids because you look like little kids, but you're not little kids." And what had happened was I had been in a teaching situation where I was teaching some third graders and they had surrounded me and pulled me somewhere to a cabinet. And my body went into like cellular memory of like,
Oh,
oh
wow.
my gosh, there's like little people pulling my arms. And I didn't freak out in the classroom. I was able to hold it together, but I had this definite like, that feels familiar.
Hmm.
So I'm screaming at these little beings about that, and one of them, the one by my head on the left side, he starts putting his little creepy hand on my forehead, and I'm cussing at it. Get your hand off of me! But as soon as it put its hand on my head, all my anger just dissipated, and I became very docile. And I was like, just do what you got to do and send me home. And okay, so the tall white one down by my leg takes this thing, this wand like thing with a tube that comes out of the ceiling. And then this rack of, it seemed like a rack of tips of some kind, right? Assorted tips. And he takes a tip and puts it on the bottom of the wand and just pops it in my calf. So that's what I recall about the actual, how I got the triangle. I don't know what the triangle is. It seems like an inoculation or something.
Hmm.
I don't know. Um, But interestingly, when I was looking at this tall white being doing this procedure, um, I was transfixed by its hands, by its beautiful long fingers. And it reminded me of the Albrecht Dürer paintings that I saw in art history class.
How
These
many fingers did it
long,
have?
it had the normal fingers, like
Hmm.
to me. I didn't notice a different count of the
They were
fingers.
just long.
They were just very long and white, and they had that
Mhm.
the robe, that the white sleeve. It was just like very, very beautiful. Even though I was
Hmm.
terrified, I was like, oh, the hands are so beautiful. And but also the being seemed to, at one point, because I'm looking at it in profile, I was down there by my leg, but really tall, and it seemed to like grow antenna.
Hmm.
And then so it went from being like a, I guess you would call it a tall gray with the big black eyes, to being more of an insect. But
A mantis type.
yeah, but like,
Hmm.
I don't know what that's about. It kind of shape shifted into the antenna. And I was startled and I said, "Oh, it looks like a big bug." So that was that incident. And later, it's interesting because later on I went Catholic, which is a whole other sub part of my,
Really?
yeah. And I was,
Most people that are Catholic don't go Catholic anymore. They bail
I
out.
know, I did the
I
opposite. I went full on Latin Mass Catholic.
oh, wow.
So, but interestingly, I was learning about a lot about exorcism and possession and demonic.
Mhm.
I thought that the aliens were demons, and I said, I don't think that anymore. I think it's could be partly that, but not completely that. That's what. But it was a very interesting detour, and I learned a lot about other phenomena, like relating to possession and things. So anyway, there's this thing in Catholicism called the Devil's Hour, and it's the inverse of when Jesus died on the cross,
Hmm.
which was 3 p.m. allegedly. So they say at 3 a.m., because the devil does everything backwards, the devil attacks people at 3 a.m. That's what they say. And they would pray at 3 a.m., the people that would stay up late and to protect people from that hour.
I wake up very often at 3 a.m.
It's also when the liver flushes
Yeah.
toxin. So
Yeah.
they say you could be awakened by a detox happening in your body. So it's all very interesting to me.
Mm.
But when I went to a support group once in Phoenix at the 2012 UFO, uh, what's it called? The Congress.
Mhm.
Congress. I went to a contactee support group room, And I mentioned the whole 4 o'clock in the morning incident. And they said, I read that a lot of people get up at 3 a.m., but I got up at 4 a.m. And someone said, when was it? Like what time of year? And I said, it was July. And they said, oh, daylight savings time. And I was like, oh my God. Like, if aliens don't do daylight savings time, or if the devil doesn't do daylight savings time, then 4 a.m. is 3 a.m. in some
Hmm.
kind of, I don't know. It's
Exactly.
just interesting. I was like, whoa, that was interesting to me. So I did go to some healers to make it stop. There was a lady, Marie Angelique Raphael. She had an ad in the Whole Lifetime saying she could stop alien abduction. And so
Hmm.
I went to her and she did like a prayer over me. And she said, you've made a contract to work with these beings. And I was like, okay. She goes, we can sever the contract. So she prayed with me. She called upon Archangel Michael and
Hmm.
Saint Germain. And I was like, whatever. And we did this prayer. I had a light bulb go out. Anyway, we did this prayer and I'm crying and it stopped happening. It stopped happening. So that's kind of good,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted. So anyway, other things happened though.
And subsequently
Before that.
to okay, but
Go ahead.
subsequent to that, did you have any more experiences or totally stopped?
Well, I had another experience, but I can't remember in the timeline because I got the regression very much later. Like I can't
Hmm.
remember if the experience happened before
Before or
I
after?
went to her,
Yeah.
because what happened was I went to the dentist. I had all my fillings taken out and replaced with the white ones because I had the
Hmm.
mercury ones.
Oh
And
yeah.
he did a great job, but one tooth was very sensitive. And I went back to him and I said, they're all great. I love them, but this one hurts. So, you know, check it out. And he said, well, the seal is good. I don't know why it's hurting you. Give it some more time. I said, okay. So I came back. Anyway, he ended up digging out my brand new filling and redoing it. But while he was in there, he found this mysterious spherical object that he said was very hard. He had a hard time drilling on it. He showed it to me with a mirror in my mouth. He
Hmm.
was banging on it. And I had asked him, I said, if you ever find anything weird in my body, you have to tell me. And I told him, I said, I am an alien abductee. And, also I said, I read that sometimes people freak out in the dentist chair. So if I ever freaked out, I've never done that before, but if I ever did, you know, heads up.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, lady, whatever. I read a book about Roswell, so okay. But anyway, when he found this thing in my tooth, he was kind of freaked out, right?
Yeah.
So he says, what do you want me to do? Because
Pull it out.
he'd been drilling and drilling at it, but he couldn't take it out like a chunk. It was turning into a powder and mixing with the water and going in the.
Oh yeah.
And I said, can you get a piece of it? He's like, no, because it's so hard. I can barely put a dent in it. And I said, okay, well, just fill it up again and I'll deal with it tomorrow, another day. I went very Scarlett O'Hara. I was like, I'll just
Hmm.
think about that tomorrow. Just
Hmm.
so whatever he did refill it and it stopped hurting. So that was good. I later went to a doctor and connected to MUFON and he wanted me to have the whole tooth pulled. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So whatever's left of it, I guess, is still in my tooth, but it's not
Yeah.
bothering me. So whatever. But I did a
And,
regression to that.
y-
I'm sorry, did you have any questions?
well, I was just going to say a lot of times when people have these quote unquote implants, um, that we counsel people on the fact that, hey, look, if this thing is not bothering you, don't mess with it, because if you do, what generally happens is it gets placed back in your body another place, which is even more hard to get to.
Mm,
Um, so anyway, that's I just wanted to
yeah.
interject that.
Okay. So, I went to Barbara Lamb this time again, and I
Mhm.
I targeted the tooth. Like, what's up with that? So we did a regression for that. And I thought I was going to get aliens again, and I didn't. I got it just makes me nauseous thinking about this. I got a military abduction,
Mm,
or what we call a MILAB. I don't know
right.
who these people are, if they're a private force or our actual military or whatever. But so I came to in this memory. I was on a table in a regular exam room, wasn't a misty white place, and there were two guys in the room with lab coats on and khaki pants and black shiny shoes. And they called me a troublemaker, and
Hmm.
they took a syringe and put something through my cheek into my tooth. It was not like a dental procedure up in your mouth. It was like right through here. So whatever it was liquid when they put it in.
Hmm.
And then I was wheeled down a hallway, and we came into a big room with a black helicopter in it. And they put me in this helicopter, and the roof opened up. And I remember how bright it was because it was daytime. And we went up, and they brought me to this little field below my house in Silver Lake, where I used to walk the dog. And they landed, and they said, go home and take a nap. So I have no idea, again, with hypnosis, I don't know if that's exactly real. I don't know if, you know, I don't know. I hope it's
Hmm.
not real, but I do hear stories similar to this, and um, the quality of memory of that one was that differentiated it from the ET stuff, whatever the ETs are. I don't even know if they're really aliens from another planet. They could be from Antarctica or under the ocean or another timeline, or I mean, who knows where they're from. So first of all, I don't know if they're aliens from other planets, these creatures. But with this experience, I felt drugged. Okay. So when I was
Hmm.
with the so-called aliens, I was on the table, I was immobilized, but I was wide awake. I was like super alert. When I was with these men, I was very groggy and I felt drugged.
Hmm.
So I was so angry though when I came out of that aggression. And Barbara was shocked too. She said it was her first military abduction
Oh,
regression.
really? Okay.
And a weird thing happened. My tape recording didn't work.
Hmm.
So I don't know what happened, but I have no record of that abduction regression. I was really upset because I like to keep all my regressions documented with
Do y-
recordings and transcripts.
do you have issues with electronics like a watch that stops all the time, or lights go on and off in your
Um,
presence and things of that nature?
as my light bulb goes out. um, I have had a little of that, not as much as some people. I can
Hmm.
still wear a watch.
Hmm.
I have had that phenomena where you go under street lights, and they go out, but I never know like how that's just coincidence and how it does symbolize something weird. I don't know.
Do you think you have or have psychic abilities or telepathic abilities?
I'm telepathic with the beings, but I'm
Hmm.
not telepathic, you know.
Hmm.
I mean, I have coincidences when you're thinking about someone and they call. I have that. That's
Yeah.
normal. I mean, I don't claim to have any cool superpowers that
Hmm.
some abductees, contactees have. I don't get downloaded with,
Hmm.
plans for the next free energy device or anything like that. That's really cool.
Damn it.
I know, but some others do. They can handle that. What I have, the only thing I would say is a remarkable ability for me is I can go into a room of people, like a party,
Hmm.
an event, and I can find another person in that room who has had similar experiences. Like we just find each other like immediately. So
Yeah.
I'm really good at that. Um,
No, that's amazing. Yeah.
yeah.
There, there's things w- when people have these kind of experiences, they seem to, as you say, gravitate to others that have had similar experiences. Have your parents or grandparents had any kind of contact like this that you know of?
Well, my maternal side of the family, yes. My there's so many small things. First of all, I was adopted, so I was born to a
Hmm.
teenage mother. Her marriage didn't work out, so I was kind of passed around when I was a toddler for a while before being adopted by my aunt. So
Hmm.
when I was a toddler, I lived with my uncle for a year in Huntsville, Alabama, and he just passed last year, but he was a NASA mechanical engineer under Werner von Braun, which
Oh,
is
geez.
another weird thing. And his
Hmm.
daughter, who's about my age, works for NASA now. So a lot of people in this experience have relatives in the aerospace industry, the NASA,
Yeah.
military, et cetera. So that was, that's interesting. And I interrogated him about my abduction. I was like, Uncle Jack, what the hell? You got to tell me what you
Yeah.
know. And he said
Right.
to me, he said, I don't know anything. And if it's true, it's NSA and they're never going to tell you. And you just need to get over it. I was like,
Okay.
thanks a
Boom,
lot.
boom.
Thanks a lot.
Wow. Yeah.
So,
Interesting.
so that, and then my birth mom said when she was meditating once, she felt two claws on her shoulders, which is
Mm.
kind of scary. And then my adopted mom, her sister, when we went to see Close Encounters of the Third Kind movie, and we were sitting in the car after the movie, she wouldn't start the car, and she looked at us kids and she said, "I want you to know if the spaceship comes, I'm going."
Hmm.
And we were like,
Really?
"Thanks, Mom. What the heck?" So,
Let me ask you a question. Just came to mind. How would you characterize your childhood, your early childhood? Was it traumatic in any way?
yes. Yes,
Yeah.
I have that.
Yeah.
That's also frequently reported with contactees that they
y-
have some
Yeah.
kind of trauma in childhood. That
Yeah.
may make them more open. It may
Yes.
make them more vulnerable. It may make them more intuitive. I don't know. But I was, like I said, passed around, eventually adopted. I had a lot of anger issues as a child.
Hmm.
Um, I was molested as a child.
Yeah.
So I did have some issues in childhood, and my fears in childhood were very paranormal. I was afraid of the night. I was afraid of my closet. I was afraid of
Sure.
lizards. I was terrified of reptilian creatures. I was
Hmm.
scared of the creature from the Black Lagoon and the slee stacks on the Land of the Lost. I was scared of vampires. Um, anyway, I had a nightmare about vampires, and that was kind of fishy because it seemed to be like a giant elevator that went underground and like a Logan's Run set of chairs people were sitting in. It was very weird. It was,
Hmm.
I don't know what that was. I fainted at the sight of blood. I had my tonsils out on my birthday, and when they did a blood test on me, I fainted. So there are a lot of things that make me wonder. I had nosebleeds a lot. I had to have my nose cauterized. I had nosebleeds. I would wake up in the morning with a bloody nose. So there were things in my childhood that,
Classic symptoms, so to speak, of or experiences that abductees talk about. Yeah, it's amazing that you know you have come to a place in your life now. It's very positive for you, and that's great. I was going to say, at what point did you realize that this wasn't as bad as you initially felt? Did you come
no,
to a conclusion that?
yeah. What happened next that was kind of a big part of my being more open minded about it all was I had this feel. I kept saying things like, "Oh, humans, they're so blah blah blah." And I remember like, "Camille, why are you talking like that? You're a human. Who are you?" And I felt myself like identifying with something not human, like, you know. And so I went to Barbara and I said, "Barbara, can I target something really weird and abstract? I have this longing for some other beings, but I don't know who I'm missing, but I'm missing somebody. And I don't think it's those things that had me on the table. So can we target that?" So we did. And we did a session. And in the memory, I felt like this panic attack of claustrophobia, like I was a sofa being stuffed in a pillowcase. And I started screaming, "I don't want to be in this body. It's so weak and small." And I'm just like in horror.
Mm,
And she said, "Well, go to a time when you felt strong."
yeah.
And I popped out and I was in space and I was in a blue form. I was like a blue light. And I remember seeing my two friends that were also blue lights and recognizing them and seeing the earth spinning and feeling anxiety about earth. Like I was on the edge of a diving board. And I was like, "I
Mm.
don't want to go to earth. I don't want to go to earth." And she said, "Well, why do you have to go to earth?" And I said, "I don't know." And she said, "Well, ask someone." So I asked, like, why do I have to go to earth? There were these light beings that appeared, pure white, like
Mm.
enormous, pure love, just overwhelming ecstasy I felt. Overwhelming and weeping, and they're my family, they're my home. Just
Mhm.
this one, I was just in ecstasy with these beings. And so I'm sorry, my stupid phone is ringing. I'm having this like the best feeling I've ever felt in my whole entire life
Mm.
in this memory with these beings. And they said, I said, why do I have to go to Earth? And they said, the Earth needs you. And I said, why? And they said, to fight evil. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, how do I do that? And they said, through your acting. And I said, really? Like, oh, everything that gets made is crappy. And, you know, and they said, don't worry, we will set it up so that you make
Mhm.
projects worthy of your time. And I was like, okay, please, please do that for me because, you know, that would be awesome. And they showed me this image of them sending love to us. Like it was coming from this central source through them. And then their arms, they had arms, even though they were light beings, they had like kind of a body. And they were pointing it at us on Earth, but we were all walking around with umbrellas. And they were like, you know, we're always here sending you love, but you guys are just all walking around with umbrellas and we can barely get to you. And it was this really neat image.
Mm.
And then the next movie I got was about an angelic encounter, like the very next movie I got. So that was kind of nice.
Yeah.
But that was a very beautiful memory. So then I was like, wow, okay, that's going on too. So now I have this really scary medical stuff and I have these amazing light beings, right? It's all going on. And so that was a game changer. And I went to England and I saw the crop circles and it was amazing. And I felt really great about that. And what else happened? Um, I wrote for UFO magazine. That's when I started in 2000. When I got back from the crop circles, I met my husband, Jeff, at a gas station in Malibu. We were getting gas together and we started talking over my bumper sticker that said, I love England. And he asked me, what part of England do you love? And I said, oh, Wiltshire. I was just in Wiltshire looking at crop circles. And I'm thinking he's not going to know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And he said, oh, my friend Jim Delatoso showed me a video of UFOs making crop circles.
Oh, he knows
I was
Jim
like, you know Jim
Delatoso.
Delatoso?
Sure.
What
Oh,
are the
wow.
odds that this would happen
Okay.
at a gas station in Malibu?
Yeah.
And so we kept talking. He was like, what got you into UFOs? And I was like, well, they got into me. And he goes, oh, I saw them. I had issues with them in Wisconsin growing up. And so I was like, oh, tell me
Oh,
more.
there you go.
We're like talking at the gas station and we swapped business cards. And then by this time I had had a fling in England when I was there. And so my boyfriend and I had broken up, the one I had moved from New
Yeah.
Orleans. So,
Right.
and he was so glad. And but we stayed friends. But you know, he was like, I wanted you to break up with me, so I'm glad you cheated on me. That's all. But no, he was like, I love you, but I couldn't deal. And he was like, I
Yeah.
was hoping when you went to the crop circles, you would meet some UFO guy. And anyway, so then I came back and I met Jeff, and here we are, still married. That was in 1998.
It's hard to have a relationship from this country to another country.
Oh
It's a
yeah, that
long
too.
distance.
That was a fling. Yeah, that was a
Yeah.
fling. But anyway, I it's such an adventure. This whole thing is such an adventure. And but then we moved to Tucson, Jeff and I and our son. And that was kind of triggered by Katrina hitting New Orleans. When Katrina hit
Mm.
New Orleans, I was so freaked out living in LA, watching the news, drinking red wine, going, it's happening. I thought like I was into stuff like the Gordon Michael Scallion maps, and I
Mhm.
thought LA was going to fall off into the ocean. I was like, we got to get out of here and go somewhere geologically safe. And so we moved to Tucson for 10 years. And it was great. And we made all these UFO friends there. They had a very, very active MUFON. Wendell Stevens lived there. All these big
Yeah.
names from ufology live in Arizona. And it was really exciting. And I had a lot of sightings there too. Um, so yeah, I mean, I haven't shown any images. I have a lot of images I could show, I guess, but um that's kind of, you know, that was interesting because also at that time I was writing my book. I was starting a book about all this. And I got to the end and I was like, I still don't know what this is. It could be mind control, it could be aliens, it could be I don't know, like all these things. And I got angry and I made this prayer. I was like, God, what is going on? Like, can I just finish this book and not lead anyone astray and get on with my life?
Hmm.
And I got introduced, like all these books came into my awareness. You know, when you go to the bookstore and books like fall off the shelf at you and stuff. And I started reading, I read Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls by Nigel Kerner. And then I read some other books and they were kind of like aliens or demons kind of books,
Hmm. Hmm.
or something interdimensional. It's not
You
good.
were reading David Jacobs books on
Well,
the
I mean,
on.
these people have good arguments. So,
Uh,
you got to weigh
yeah.
everything. And
Well,
I had this born again experience, like really
mhm.
powerful Jesus experience, which, you know, was not what I expected. And I went back to church and I went full on, right? For 9 years. And my husband was like, wow, because he's an astrologer for a living. He's like,
Right.
this is going to be interesting. And,
Yeah. Well,
but I learned a lot and I still go to mass, even though I'm like not really all in. I still
mhm.
think it's beautiful and
Yeah.
I like to go, but I mean, I've incorporated all this, you know, I'm a bad Catholic, in other words.
Yeah, well, I was raised a Catholic and I don't practice. I had problems with the dogma of the church, but that's a
Um,
whole nother topic.
yeah.
But one of the things that you mentioned whether or not these are extraterrestrial, are they interdimensional, are they time travelers, is it our military, or is it all the above? And anything that you can possibly think of is what's going on. I think it definitely is all the above because there's good examples of each of those, just as you talked about the MILABS things and these tall whites or the short grays or whatever, whether it's a mantis, whether it's a Nordic, there's so many different types that are talked about. And as far as their agendas are concerned, you're looking at, we have, just like we have here on Earth, we have good people and we have bad people. And that's the
Yeah.
way it is. And we got the same thing going on up there. There's good aliens, if you will, and bad aliens. And whether you call them angels or demons, it's a mix. You can't say it's all one thing or the other. I don't think. This is
Yeah.
my personal opinion.
So one thing that really shifted me, we moved back to LA in 2016 and I started acting again. And my career really took off. And I've had all these great roles in my 50s. It's really fun. And I was in this Oscar winning film Vice with Christian
Hmm.
Bale. And everything was going great. And I was still kind of just being Catholic and not being into UFOs. But then
Hmm.
around, I don't know, maybe a year ago, maybe when the disclosure stuff really started to heat up, I got interested again. And I was like, you know what? I'm still curious. I still need to make sense of this. This is more complicated than all all this is demons. And I just started going to meetings. I went to the UFO Congress in
Hmm.
Phoenix in October. I had a
Hmm.
great time. I reconnected with a bunch of old friends and I came back and I started going to meetings in LA and I was asked to speak at UFO Con up in San
Yeah,
Francisco.
San Francisco. Yeah.
So I did that. It was great. I met so many people. That's where I met John Ramirez, and I saw your interview with John. It was great.
Yes. Oh my God.
And I also went to Alien Con. I met Chris Bledsoe, whose book
Hmm.
really moved me. And Chris just really, like Chris, really, I really resonate with Chris, and I love his energy, and I love his outlook on all this. And he's really helping me. Like he says, Camille, they're angels, and they've been with you since you were a little girl, and don't be afraid. And I'm like, really? So a lot of things have started happening to me recently since
Right.
meeting Chris, actually. Chris has
Hmm.
kind of activated some stuff. So I've had some recent things happen that are interesting. And I have a lot of friends, like Christian friends, that are awakening to their weird experiences that they've had. And their memories are being, you know, they're looking at their memories from my perspective and seeing them differently. So
Yeah.
one of the things I love about talking about this publicly is so many people will tell you their stories, like everywhere you go, and you realize how prevalent this is and how common it is for people to have these kinds of experiences. It's not uncommon. And they wouldn't tell you if you didn't tell them. So you
First. Yeah.
discover this whole world of this reality happening.
Well, my latest theory on this is that literally we've all had experiences, whether we consciously remember them or not. Um, it's a spiritual journey, not a religious journey, but a spiritual journey and an awakening that's really happening to people like yourself. Um, I had an incident that I facilitated a support group in San Jose when I was living in California, and one of the people at one of the meetings said, "I've seen you before." And I said, "Oh, where? A UFO conference?" And no, 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 I saw you on board the craft. I said, "Really?" Because at that point I had no conscious recollection of it. And then it was like a year and a half later that a totally different person said the same thing. "I've seen you before." And I said, "Where? Are you? No, you were sitting on this bench naked and you were freaking out on board the craft. And they told me to go over to you to calm you down." And it was like, okay, that's when I went and got regressed. I had 3 separate regressions. I found out nothing along those lines, but I had multiple past lives. And reincarnation seems to be a mechanism of the universe. And many of these people that have had these experiences talk about the fact that the aliens talk about reincarnation, that this is just part of how the soul processes and then moves on in various forms and in various times and various dimensions even. It's
I had a past life memory come up during a healing. Someone was working on me doing a type of healing called
Reiki,
no, it was some Asian word. I can't.
Qigong,
She had
Qigong.
me on no, she had me on a cot and she had one hand above me and one hand below me.
Oh, okay.
And I can't remember what it's called, but it was very powerful. And then I also had a friend say he saw me on a ship,
Mm,
comforting him while he was being worked on. And it's interesting because I had a another kind of like weird body memory happen to me when my boyfriend, the old boyfriend,
mm,
had a small car accident. We were at the emergency room waiting around to get seen, and when we went into the little, you know, cubicle or whatever,
mhm,
where they put like emergency room people and these multiple things
mhm.
with the
Yeah,
curtain, right?
right.
So he was okay. Like he had a minor knee injury, and I was kind of bored, and so I started walking around and kind of there were other people in the emergency room, and I felt like talking to one of them next to us. And I had this memory, like it was the way I was talking to this person on the table. It was like, I've done this. Like I feel at home doing this. It was
Mm.
really weird. So I don't know if I have had that job on a ship,
Or in a past life
or in a
doing
past
that.
life. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know if it was like an alien abduction memory where I was comforting someone on a table, or like you said, I didn't even think of that, like a past life. I don't know. All I know is that when you have these deja vu weird feelings,
Mhm.
it's very real.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's yeah,
So,
I've had some pretty interesting experiences myself in Arizona
mm,
and
yeah,
down in Gila Bend uh, near Luke Air Force Base.
okay.
It's very, very incredible sightings. But again, no conscious recollection. Although when we were there was a couple of other people with me. We all felt something happened that night, but none of us could remember what it was. So,
Yeah. I had a sighting in Arizona of an orange orb following an airplane
mhm.
at night with I had MUFON friends at my house. I was having a party and we were on the back porch and saw that. I had another sighting of 5 lights that were in a row over the mountain that blinked off one at a time. And that one was reported on the news. There were people saying that it messed with their TV signal and also that it messed with the
Oh, wow. That's
um,
amazing.
I had a sighting. Well, I didn't have a sighting in Sedona. I took a photo in Sedona. I could show you that. And we didn't know it until later. But when we downloaded the photo, there was a UFO in the photo. That
Oh,
was a
wow.
and another
Sure.
contactee in the car.
Perfect.
So that was yeah, I woke up from the spider dream, and I had this mark on my shoulder, and every once in a while I would have like a bee sting sensation on that mark, and then it would shoot down my arm like electricity. And I was at a party once and I met this guy who was introduced to me as someone who worked on mind control victims.
Mm,
And I was telling him about my tooth. I said, "Oh, I'm so happy to meet you because I had this weird thing in my tooth that I think the military put in my tooth." And he said, "I'm not reading that there's anything active in that tooth anymore." He said, "But what have you got in your right shoulder?" And I was like, "Oh, how did you know?"
See,
And
thank
and
you very much.
so he worked on my shoulder and that went away. He did this
Yeah.
whole like thing with me that went away. So that was one thing. Here's another mark I had on my left shoulder, which was a square grid pattern. I don't have any memory of how I got this. I've
Oh,
never done
that
inspections.
that looks something like I've seen. I have in one of my presentations that I do. There's a woman that has these grid marks on the bottom of her feet
Whoa, whoa.
and under her chin. Under her chin.
Wow.
It's very similar to that. Interesting.
So here's the UFO picture from Sedona. Do you see
Oh
this?
yeah.
That's what
I.
showed up in our picture. And here's the blow up. That, okay?
Oh wow. Yeah.
So
No,
my
that's good.
mother and my friend Raven, we were in a car, and my mom and I were there for a Drum Below Melchizedek workshop, and we just
Hmm.
went sightseeing, and this showed up in our picture. It's kind of cool. I have a video I'd like to show. No, there's the picture of it. Okay, this is the
Hmm.
still from it. So what happened? I was at church, and I had this UFO con thing coming up. This was in February, and I just had made this prayer, like, oh my God. I said, okay, I was at church. We have church in a tent. It's a long story, but we moved out into this tent in the parking lot during COVID. And then we got so big, we couldn't fit back in the building and we're still in this giant tent. So I had this little square of the sky, this little triangle actually, where I was looking up at the sky and I said, okay, Jesus, I need a sign. Like if you are working with any good beings in the UFOs, please give me a sign because I'm so nervous about going into this fray, publicly and speaking and telling my story. I need a sign. So right after that prayer, in the middle of the Agnus Dei, I look up and there's these four things come out of the clouds and start moving around. And I was shocked, and I whipped out my camera and I got a few seconds of them. So I'm gonna play this video. I don't know
Okay.
how well it will work, for your viewers, but look at
Oh
the
yeah. I can see it.
okay, look at the upper portion of the screen as it begins. I will eventually zoom in and you'll see
Okay.
them. Here it comes. They're kind of right here.
Oh yeah. I see him. Yeah. It's. Yeah. They're okay. That's good. That's good. Yeah. I see him.
Yeah, and then I got shy because I was filming in church and I put my camera away. But see, I captured all four of them. Now I don't know what those were. I don't know if they were birds or UFOs. They were very, very high. And
Yeah.
you know, I told Chris about it, and I said, Chris, I don't know. I mean, like, what do you think? Were those birds or UFOs? He said, Camille, those were angels. And I was like, really? And he said, yes. And so I don't know what they were, but
Yeah.
even if they were birds, like to me, white birds are the Holy Spirit in symbolism, right? So
Hmm.
no matter what they were,
Yeah.
it has a sign.
It's difficult when they're so far away. You can't make a good judgment on what it is, but it's certainly unusual.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean that's pretty much, I don't really
Hmm.
need to get into too many more
Okay. Well, great. I appreciate having seeing those. That's great.
so yeah, that's where I am now. Where I am now is I'm very open-minded, but I'm also cautious.
Hmm.
I'm working with Yvonne Smith's group. I'm also working with Rebecca Hardcastle Wright or Wright Hard. Why am
Right. Hmm.
I blanking on her name right now? I love her.
Yeah. Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Hardcastle Wright. Um,
Uh-huh.
and I'm making connections and I'm just like kind of catching up, to be honest, because I had dropped out for so long. Like there are all these names in the field with the disclosure and all that stuff that I'm trying to catch up on all that stuff. I'm on UFO Twitter. I'm just trying to catch up. And
Well, and this is a process. There's
yeah,
no question about it that we don't know a lot about this phenomena. It's another reality that we are dealing with, and from a physics standpoint, at least now we're getting more of mainstream science really taking a look at this phenomena from the quantum aspects of it to the interdimensionality of it the time travel aspects of it. I mean, it's an incredible phenomenon. Once you start going down this rabbit hole, it has many, many facets and many, many tunnels.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong thing, and for me, it started when I was 11 years old and I saw this object and it scared the crap out of me. And I went to the library and started reading books on UFOs, and it never really left me. And here I am at 75 years old and I'm still doing this thing. So,
Yeah, I can't walk away from it. It's too
yeah,
fascinating, and I'm
yeah,
involved, and I do feel protected though. Like
mhm.
I'm not afraid to go to sleep at night. I don't know. It's like you would think I'd be more fearful, but I'm not.
So
And
you're in a good
I'm
place
in a
right
good
now with
place.
this
I'm in a good
phenomena.
place.
Hmm.
I do feel like, when people say, well, what do you have they shown you visions of the future or anything like that?
Hmm.
I say, I don't get that, but I do have, lifelong of dreams of um, earth changes and extreme weather. So
Hmm.
I have always had dreams of tornadoes and volcanoes and
Yeah.
tidal waves and things like that. And usually in the dream, I'm the one pointing at it, going, "Look, look!" And everybody's walking around like zombies, like,
Yeah.
whatever. So there's something of that in my psyche that, like, I do feel there's an imminent something, and it could be really bad or really good, and we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully,
Yeah.
it's really
Uh,
good. But
exactly. I mean,
yeah,
that you mentioned John Ramirez before the interview I did with him, and he even mentioned that something is going to be happening that's going to be very significant in a relatively short amount of in months,
I
not
can
years.
I feel
So, and he wasn't able to talk about it, but it's certainly something that portends something pretty significant. So I'm glad
yeah,
it hopefully be in our lifetime. Yes.
my concern is always discernment. Discernment is so
Hmm.
hard with this, and
Yeah.
you read about things like blue beam and you wonder, are they going to fake an alien invasion to like get a
Hmm.
one world government, or are they
Hmm.
going to, or is it going to be really alien? Like, that kind of stuff makes me nervous
Right.
because I don't want to be tricked. I have trust issues, major trust issues, and I don't want to
Sure.
be deceived.
Yeah. No, none of us do, but I think we're going in the right direction with all these disclosures that are going on from the government, and of course, can we trust the government? That's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah.
Um, but it seems like they're making a concerted effort to really look at this UAP phenomena, and then the next thing, of course, is the people that are having these experiences, like you,
Yeah,
and
hello. We're part
and
of the story.
exactly, a huge part of the story. And I know the government has already been working with various people. I mean, you mentioned Chris Bledsoe. I mean, the three-letter governmental agencies have visited him and talked to him, and so they are interested. They are interested, and they are looking at the thing, but it's certainly not out there yet. But it will be. It will be.
There are all these levels, like people that can accept seeing a UFO, some of them have a block about considering what might be flying that. And then if they can go to the idea of aliens, they may have a block about aliens abducting people. So they have different levels that they're willing to go to
Hmm.
cognitively that, if you follow the logical progression, it ends up with, you better start listening to the abductees. But some people just can't get there yet.
No, no. And I remember when I first got started as a MUFON investigator back in '91, uh, my window of believability was rather narrow, and I was more a nuts and bolts kind of guy. But then all these cases were that almost without exception were not only sightings, but people telling me that they had contact with non-human intelligences. So, so I mean, then uh, these people would ask me, did I know of other people having these experiences? And I said, yes, I do. And the next thing I'm facilitating a support group in my office. And then learning about all these things that these people have been in contact with, and their experiences just mind blowing. And so I've heard so many different stories over the years, and there's a common theme through all of this. And the bottom line is that the majority of people, thank goodness, are having positive experiences, but there's a small minority that are having very negative experiences. And I think it's a case of them running into the wrong group. Just like I said earlier, we have good people here and bad people here, but the same thing going on up there, wherever there is.
Yeah. I mean, I have blocks too. Like I've never done a regression to try to find out more information about this alleged alien baby.
Hmm.
I'm not ready
Yeah,
for that.
right.
And, I mean, if I do the math and that thing was taken out of me in 1995, I mean, it's a big adult now.
Yeah, yeah. It's
I have a child right now who's 21, and, this thing would be way older than him. And, which is another thing. When I was pregnant with my son, I was freaking out. I had to call John Mack and he hooked me up with a lady to talk to because I was afraid my baby would disappear. And also just
oh,
reliving the
wow,
pregnancy symptoms.
wow,
I was like, oh my God, I really was pregnant back then because it was just like this. So
wow.
the idea of having the real baby
Yeah.
after the whatever that was, alien baby, it made it more real. And people try to like dismiss us with this whole alien
Oh,
baby. I don't,
yeah.
they say, well, you must have had an abortion and you're having an abortion memory. I'm like, that would maybe make sense, but I've never had an abortion. So
On
there's no
on
problem.
our website, if you go to our website, in the section on our interviews, Geraldine Orozco, who's a board member, she talks about her hybrid babies and that she's actually seen them, and she had multiple babies, and she went through
Right.
hell. She went through hell with all these missing fetuses and things of that nature. So if you want to listen to an interesting interview, you might want to check that one out. Geraldine
Yeah,
Orozco.
I will. She's very interesting. And when I
Mhm.
was, I used to go to Bashar channelings back in the
Mm,
90s. And Bashar mentioned that I had multiple children
yeah,
on the ship.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're a mother, and in many dimensions.
Well, it's just so weird. And
It is.
it's, I
It is
mean,
strange.
but what are you going to do? I mean,
Well, the positive thing is the fact that you have been able to assimilate this into your life and not have it not wreck your life, which
yeah,
is
I mean,
done
I've
to
never
many
had a
people.
total nervous breakdown. I've never
Yeah,
had to,
yeah,
I've always been able to pay the bills and keep
yeah,
working and
right,
functioning. I've never
yeah,
been institutionalized or anything, but
right.
it's been socially very awkward. And I do have issues with anger and I do have issues with trust
Hmm.
and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Which are they're probably more earthly in nature than being uh, attributed to an abduction. But anyway, Camille, this was absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate you being here with me today, and I want to just basically thank all our listeners out there. And as a nonprofit, we depend on donations, and you can go to our website. Yay! Oh,
I
look at
got the
that!
shirt.
Fantastic! Oh, great! You're gonna have to put that on. Um, and go to our website at opusnetwork.org and hit that donate button and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can go to Opus Network, and we're getting to the point, we're getting close to the point where we can actually go live on YouTube. So whatever help you can give us, that would be great. Again, Camille, thank you so much. It's been absolutely fascinating, and I look forward to running into you soon. I think I'd like to chat some more with you and see where you are at that point.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you go to my website camillejamesharman.com, you can keep up with my acting stuff and all my social media links on there. And I do put my UFO stuff on the social media links.
Oh, that's great. I was just going to ask you, was there anything that you'd like to put out there to the people that are listening here? We appreciate the fact that our guests do have a lot of interesting things out there, and I've got to now go back and watch Vice.
Yeah, and if you want to see me in Shameless, it's season 10, episode 1.
Season 10 episode. I love Shameless. Oh my God, what a series. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you so much, Camille.
you're welcome. It was fun. Thank you so much.